I remember it was a big room. They didn't pass a microphone. And I heard about 2 out of 50 people who spoke. And that was when I went, okay, this is terrible. I mean, I sat there for like 40 minutes and could only hear 2 people. And so that's when it really hit me. That's when the pain got great enough. And I said, okay, you got to get these. Hi, I'm Colleen Reynolds, and I am a media relations coordinator for OSF Healthcare. But I spent the bulk of my career in radio, and that is what brought me to Bloomington a long time ago. Well, I was a kid that always had troubled ears from the very beginning. We had a pool in the backyard. I would often get swimmer's ear. And at one point, I lost 40% of my hearing. And I got the tubes, the surgery where they insert the little tubes in. That seemed to really help. But I had experienced what it was like to not be able to hear as a young person. And it was very frustrating. And as a kid, you felt left out of certain things when you couldn't hear what was going on. You're playing musical chairs and you can't hear the music that well. And yeah, that sort of thing. So there was quite a period there where I had trouble hearing. But we had 6 kids in a family. And so it was like, yeah, put some butter on it, kind of thing. I had experienced that and then experienced being able to hear again. And it was wonderful. And so I had sort of the same experience in adulthood. I would say I was fine, and that really helped me throughout most of my, 20s, 30s, even my 40s. And it wasn't until really my 50s. And I think that my issues were related to, in radio, you wear headphones and you're in a noisy newsroom. Back in the day, I worked so long ago where there were typewriters clicking and clacking and wire machines that were whirring. And then you had the radio scanners blasting out. And you had to hear what was going on the air while you were in the newsroom. So you would wear headphones to hear the radio station. And you would have to have them up pretty loud to block out all that background noise. And so I think cumulatively over the years, that kind of exposure to loud, radio station in your ears really started to do its damage. I've noticed a lot of older folks who were in radio for a long time all have their hearing issues. And so that's what leads me to think it really has a lot to do with that. It was really after I had left, and I would say the last 6 years, like 6 years ago when I started my new job at OSF Healthcare, and I kind of went back to interviewing people as part of my job. And I would find myself 5 feet away from someone who was wearing a Bluetooth microphone, and I couldn't hear them. And I would struggle to hear what they were saying. And if you're interviewing somebody and you can't hear what they say, it's a bad situation because you can't listen for the follow-up questions you need to be asking, or did you get the content you needed out of the question you asked? And so that was when I really started noticing, because it was impacting my job. In the times when I would notice or have difficulty, like large gatherings, especially with people who were really tall, I would notice, I can't hear a word. And I'm fairly short, so, that happened quite a bit. Everybody's taller than me. I started noticing at those kind of events as well, and those were events I needed to do for my job, so I really couldn't avoid them. I think if I had had a choice, I probably would have, but I kind of didn't have that luxury. I kind of identified the low talkers, and I would mostly avoid them because I knew if I was going to have a conversation, I was going to have to try to fake my way through it or pretend that I heard what they said. And that's just so awkward because then maybe you're laughing at the wrong things, and then you become persona non grata, So I could identify people, at least, especially in my, closer circle of friends, that I would just kind of steer clear of because I knew I wasn't going to be able to hear them. I think I delayed because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what I wasn't hearing necessarily. And so it's kind of like any kind of change in life. I think the pain has to be great enough for us to make a change. And I think for a long time, the pain wasn't great enough for me to make that commitment, admit I'm old, admit that I have, something that I'm going to have to deal with the rest of my life. It's kind of a big thing to admit that you have a major issue, health issue. And so I think I delayed until the pain got great enough. And so I mentioned that situation where I was, interviewing somebody 5 feet away and I couldn't hear them. There was another sort of profound event that happened, and it was work related. We were in a large room, and it was the one time our entire division got together. So they did a little icebreaker, and they went around this room, and people had to, say something about a Christmas memory or something. And I remember it was a big room. They didn't pass a microphone, and I heard about 2 out of 50 people who spoke. And that was when I went, okay, this is terrible. I sat there for 40 minutes and could only hear 2 people. And so that's when it really hit me. That's when the pain got great enough. And I said, okay, you got to get these. I could not hear anything. And it was really frustrating because people were laughing at certain things, or, you could tell it was a very dramatic story. And it was a way to try to get to know your colleagues. And I feel like I just missed out on all of that. And I didn't get to know my colleagues because I missed their, anecdote or story. And yeah, it was the first time I really felt like my hearing loss was making me miss out. I had already been familiar with Bloomington-Normal audiology. They're just a blue ribbon company in the community, I think. And I knew there was no doubt that if I was going to make this leap and I was going to get, hearing aids, that there was nowhere else to go. I was just excited. And I knew that first appointment was really going to be just an orientation and talking about, getting hearing aids. And so I knew it was setting the table. And I was actually very excited about that. First of all, everybody is super friendly. Love that. Just a nice, welcoming environment. And then Dr. Chalmers was wonderful, brought me back for the hearing test. And, I really appreciated the fact that she explained, what she saw and what she heard from that test. But she also said, we want to rule out anything medical. And so I did go see an ear, nose, and throat person. And I felt like that was really great because it was being thorough. Because she said, if it's something medical, maybe you don't need hearing aids. And I thought, that's wonderful. She's not pushing, the product, so to speak, on me. I felt like she was really looking out for me as a person, not just as a potential client. So I thought that was wonderful. If you think about the eye chart test that you take when you go to the eye doctor, to me, it felt a lot like that, only for the ears. And I was a little surprised that I had just general hearing loss. For some people, they can't hear certain frequencies. And I thought maybe I was going to have that situation because going back to my OSF experience in that big division meeting, I was able to hear 2 people. And I felt like that must have had something to do with the pitch of their voice or the tone. But overall, I had general hearing loss. And that was just a little bit of a surprise. But the test was easy, and Dr. Chalmers was great in explaining what to expect, before and then after explaining the results. It couldn't have been easier. I remember being able to hear the office equipment humming, and that was it blew my mind because it made me realize there are so many sounds that I just don't hear every day. And it was something as small as that made me realize what I had been missing. Just that little whir of whatever the office equipment was. And I thought, wow, this is amazing to hear the phones in the other office ring. I would have never heard that probably previously. It was just really profound because it hit me almost like a sound wave. Now I'm hearing all of this background noise that I never heard. I like the fact that there's a phone app and you can adjust the volume for a noisy room or, a regular hearing situation. I loved that. I will say the first time I went to a large gathering to hear sort of the cacophony of people talking around me was a little jarring. It was a little hard to get used to, but it was fine because all I did is I just sort of, hit a few buttons and it helped mute some of that, background. And it was wonderful to be able to hear people across a table who were trying to have a conversation with me. That never would have happened. I wouldn't have even attempted to have a conversation with someone across a table. So that's when it hit me. This is really cool. This is what I've been missing. And it was great. It was a wonderful social experience, unlike what I had had in recent years. It was great. I love the streaming aspect of it. I am somebody who walks and listens to podcasts. And, it's wonderful because I have sort of small ears with small canals, and I could never use like the Apple, AirPods. They just never fit. And I just always struggled with headphones. And then, I eventually went to the big cans over my ears, but, that's heavy and bulky, and especially when you're walking and, you sweat. And so having hearing aids while I'm walking and being able to listen effortlessly to my music or a podcast, it was wonderful. It was fantastic. And even on the hot days when you might get a little sweaty and, I do a little walk and jog. And so what I thought was great is when I would take them off, I would just put them back in this little case that is the charging case. And unlike other, hearing aids, I had done some research and I realized this one has a little fan in it, which is great because it would dry out your sweaty, hearing aids. And so I just thought that was just a wonderful feature and function. And, being able to charge these so easily every night it's great. It's really great. Another profound experience I had was visiting my sister in the Chicago suburbs during the height of the cicada infestation. And she lived in an area where they were thick. I remember getting out of the car and just, again, it was like that wall of sound of cicadas. I could not believe what I was hearing. And, definitely it was loud for everybody, but it was amplified for me, and it took me a little bit to get adjusted. But I thought, wow, this is really amazing how much I can hear these. Yeah, it was crazy. It took an adjustment. And again, what I do like is with the phone app, I could just kind of make my little adjustment on my phone, and that would kind of like tone it down and let me, be able to concentrate on hearing the people in the room with me instead of the cicadas. Well, every night I used to use a sound app, and I would listen to crickets to go to sleep. And now it's so interesting because I can sit out on my back deck, and with my hearing aids, I can hear not only the crickets, but I can hear the tree frogs and, birds. It's really interesting because, again, I realized what I had been missing. And it's so great to be able to sit out there and listen to, just the sounds of nature. It's beautiful. The biggest challenge with hearing aids, and anybody who wears them will probably tell you, is sometimes you forget to wear them. And then you are so regretful. And that just happened to me. I went to a restaurant with high ceilings, and I was with, two people, and one of them was a low talker. And she was sitting right next to me, but I really struggled. And I had to tell her, I'm so sorry. I forgot to wear my hearing aids. And again, it was just a reminder of how different life is without them and how grateful I am to have them. Yeah, I feel like I did miss out on some of life during that period where I was struggling. And so, sure, I would encourage people, just go for it. It really does enhance your life. It really does make your life better. And you don't have to avoid people. There is the stigma. For some reason, we think about hearing differently than we think about sight. And I think that'll begin to change. I'm hoping it already is. I think Bloomington-Normal audiology is helping reduce that stigma. I think by educating the public, by having, blogs out there, by doing commercials like this and testimonials, so we can destigmatize the inability to hear. And it's just like anything. Why would you not get something that's going to help you live a better life? They are wonderful to work with. They will help you. If you have financial concerns, they will help you. And so I say, just go for it. Your life will improve. Well, for one, I have a better relationship with my sister, who was probably she's one of the most important people in my life. And she was very frustrated with my inability to hear. She's a talker, and she feels like she has a lot to say. And when I was having trouble hearing her, she got really frustrated with me. And so now that I have the hearing aids, I can hear everything she says, and she enjoys that. And, we do have a better relationship. You don't realize how much an impact of not hearing and others' frustration with you can strain a relationship. And so I would say that was one of the more profound differences, sort of the before and after. Before hearing aids, a lot of frustration. After, smooth sailing.